I want to welcome everyone this evening to the second of the community meetings on the redistricting of the magisterial districts in Chesterfield County. I'm Jeff Minks. I'm county attorney for Chesterfield. And with me is Kevin Carroll, who is the Matoaca district representative on the Board of Supervisors, and the county administrator, Dr. Joe Casey, who is down at the end of the table here. Tonight what we're going to be doing is similar to what we did at the last community meeting, which is to go over a fairly brief presentation, but hopefully informative if you haven't seen it already, and that will go through sort of the process of how we got here, the proposal that is on the table right now for discussion, and then the steps that are coming up to the public hearing, which will be held in October at the October Board of Supervisors meeting, October 27th. And that is a public hearing that anyone can attend to and speak to. And then the decision will actually be made at the board's following following meeting in November. That's November the 17th. During that time, there will be the portal that has been open to receive comments on redistricting. That portal will remain open so that people can continue to comment right up to the day before that November board meeting. So there'll be plenty of opportunities still for people to weigh in with comments on this proposal. And I'm here. We've already had some comments that have been posted for tonight. So we'll have things to talk about tonight as well. And thank you for your comments in advance. Before we get started, I'd just like to turn it over to Mr. Carroll and give him an opportunity to speak to the public.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. To all of those that are viewing at home, thank you for taking an interest in this topic. Redistricting is a very thorough process that we have here in Chesterfield County. I want to tell you personally, I'm not looking forward to losing 1 inch of the Matoaca district. Unfortunately, if you look at the data that has come in through the census, in the last 10 years, we've had over 48,000 people move into Chesterfield County. Over 16,000 of those people have moved into the Matoaca district, which put us over 79,000 people, which was made us the largest populated district. We were already the largest landmass at almost 52% of the county, 228 square miles. But now at 79,500 people, we're the most populated, which, as will be explained tonight, we're required by law to adjust the boundaries and come within a certain percentage point. So it was a very difficult decision when looking at where we could make these changes. We tried to make the changes according to what the law calls for, which is why we've chosen the particular changes that you're going to see tonight. Again, this is a opportunity for the public to weigh in, to see what's being proposed, and comment, which we appreciate the comments that have come in already. I appreciate your emails for those who have emailed me directly or called me directly to voice their concerns, and feel free to continue doing that. And so thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I think it's important for us to move forward with the presentation.
Thank you. Dr. Casey?
Again, I want to welcome anyone who's joining us, and again, this is the second of the 2 virtual meetings we're having, but our citizen comment portal and our website dedicated to this topic has been open really since before we actually even received the census information, so that we can begin accumulating your thoughts. All of those comments are relayed to the 5 Board of Supervisors members. They, again, are the ultimate decision makers. The only thing I'd have to say is just introduction comments is, I've been doing redistricting every 10 years, actually since 1990. So this is the 4th time I've been through such processes. They're very well-defined processes. The things that really just change over time is, quite frankly, the technologies that are involved. If I recall, back in 1990, we actually used paper and scissors sometimes to figure out where to put pieces and parts. And again, the software and systems are so high-tech, so instantaneous, if you will, that we are able to, again, facilitate processes for the people, for the Board of Supervisors, other interested parties, to really give the facts back to them as quick as they have questions for us. Just a few reminders. What we are going through in this process has no bearing or changes on what the election itself will be in the next couple of weeks. those districts are defined, those candidates are defined and running for such areas that they represent. So again, just this has no influence on that. This does not change any school boundary districts. That was an innocent question asked by a few people. Again, the school districting, redistricting process that schools go through is an entirely different metric and process than this annual 10-year exercise. But I do, and also the redistricting is inclusive of all citizens that live in Chesterfield County, not just that voted or those that are even registered. And I always will speak, I encourage anyone who's out there to register to vote and then get out there and vote. We have been a leader and a role model for many as far as early voting practices and other voting practices in Chesterfield County. So again, the redistricting itself is the exercise of how to apportion, if you will, the entire population into as close as possible 5 equal parts under a lot of other rules and regulations. Thank you, Mr. Meeks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Casey. So we'll go ahead and get started on just a, again, fairly brief picture of this proposal and how we got here and where we're going. So there are requirements for redistricting. This happens every 10 years, and the law requires, actually the Constitution of Virginia requires, the Board of Supervisors to change the boundaries of our magisterial districts in every 10 years in the year ending in 1, the year that we're in right now. Those district changes, and I'm looking at a screen over here, and I apologize that I'll try to go back and forth between the camera and the screen. The district changes are needed to reapportion the population. Mr. Carroll summarized very well the fact that there was a disproportionate growth in Chesterfield County, and that disproportionate growth is what requires an so-called equalizing of population between the districts. All of the changes, boundary changes in the magisterial districts have to be driven by the data that we receive from the U.S. Census. There isn't another source of data. We don't have any other data that we have or use or can use. So this year, I think everybody is aware the census data came out quite a bit later, almost 6 months later than we normally see it during a redistricting year. So that has put all of us sort of having to scramble to get this done within the year that we're required to complete it. And again, to make sure that everybody gets the point one more time, and that is the redistricting of the magisterial districts does not change or affect any school district boundary. There actually is no relationship whatsoever between this redistricting exercise and what the schools might do in the future. Okay, there are sort of ground rules for redistricting. One is that every portion of a district, magisterial district, has to be contiguous with every other portion, has to actually touch other portions. This is from Maryland. This is 3rd Congressional District of Maryland. And amazingly, all portions of this district actually do touch each other through some fairly narrow corridors. But that actually does meet the contiguity rule. Everything is contiguous, touching. There's supposed to be compactness, which is how close can I get to a circle, how close can I get to a square, and the answer is nobody gets very close on a compactness basis. But we look at compactness issues whenever we redistrict. This happens to be a Texas congressional district that actually was found to be compact, even though it goes all the way from Austin to San Antonio. This is maybe one of the more important, if not most important, of the requirements, and that is every magisterial district has to have clearly observable boundaries, and this is a state law requirement. And in that state law and that state statute, we actually are told exactly what kind of boundaries we can use and what we can't use. So it tends to be streets, rivers, permanent features that are shown on very specific maps. It's not just on any map, but on very specific maps, like VDOT maps and like on USGS topographic maps. So we're always cognizant when we draw boundary lines, do we have an observable boundary that we are allowed by law to use? And finally, there has to be equal population, and that equal is in quotes because nobody ever really gets to equal. And so the law has created a deviation notion that so long as the deviation between the most populous and the least populous district is less than 5%, then that is considered to be equal population. So that's the standard, certainly the standard that's used in Virginia. Now, there's this requirement as well, and that is the redrawing of the magisterial districts can't result in packing, and that is intentionally concentrating a voting block into one district to remove the ability of that voting block to influence elections in a surrounding district. So that's the notion of packing a racial block into one jurisdiction here, magisterial district. And then it's sort of a cousin, which is cracking, or what I call dilution of voting, and that is when I am diluting the voting strength within a particular district. So those are two things that we are always looking at, particularly once we have figured out how to equalize the population, then we take a look at this issue as well. The 2020 census results, again, the results that we are permitted to use, they are the 2020 census results, but we didn't get them until August 12th of 2021. So again, much later than normal. This has data that gives us total population numbers, voting age population numbers, racial demographic numbers, and housing unit data. As Mr. Carroll's already mentioned, we grew by roughly 15.5% since 2010, moving our population up to 365,306 residents. So that is sort of the baseline that we have to work from. Down at the bottom of this slide, and this slide will be available, you can go back to it, it will be posted and you can go back, but that long link at the bottom is a link that allows you to go to the same data that we used and are using for the census, and this is the U.S. Census Bureau's website, but this has been drilled down so that you go immediately to the Chesterfield County data. So you can go onto the site in general and you can filter it yourself, but this will save you all the trouble of having to do that, and you can go directly to Chesterfield County. Okay. So the proposal that the board came up with, and that we are looking at right now. Again, this was where we started from, and this was the population from the 2020 census. And it, as you can see, as Mr. Carroll explained, Matoaca grew at a disproportionate way compared to the other magisterial districts, and some magisterial districts, while nobody lost population, some did not grow as fast as others and actually grew below where 1/5 of the population would put you. So that's why you're seeing some of the numbers negative and some of the numbers positive. All of those are a deviation from absolute zero, where each district would have exactly 1/5 of the population. So, Matoaca, it has by far the most population that it has to give up to comply with the redistricting requirements. Okay, so that was again the starting point. This again is the current magisterial district map, and so this is the starting place from a mapping or a visual standpoint. And what was done then was taking those numbers you just saw, this map that you just saw, and in meetings with individual board members, and sometimes in groups of two, but the board members looked at first of all, how do we move population so that we can get in the vicinity of equalizing population that falls within that 5% range that I talked about? That was the first task, to figure out what you could look at to get to that equalized population. And that yielded then this. And what you see there are really in reality 4 different changes, and we'll look at each one of these 4 changes one by one, because it'll make it, I think, a little easier to understand. But you've got then those 4 arrows are going to 4 different parts of the county. But again, we'll talk about each one. But we'll continue to revisit this map so that you can sort of keep track of where we are. And we're going to start in Western Midlothian. And so this is the western portion of Midlothian, and what is proposed is to add this portion of what is now the Matoaca district, and it's portion of the Skin Quarter voting precinct. And it is bounded by Genito Road to the south, Otterdale Road to the east, Powhatan County to the west, and actually the current Midlothian district to the north. Okay? So that's that first one that you see off to the left-hand side. Then I think we're going to go to the Dale, sort of the Dale Gaines slides. The first one is this one, which is a portion of the Pocoshock voting precinct. And right now, Dale is to the east of this of this particular segment of Pocoshock voting precinct. Walmsley Boulevard to the north, Dorton Way Drive, and Belmont Road. And that dotted line right by where the word Dale is, that dotted line is actually a gas line easement and a buried gas line, so that is an available geographic boundary. Okay? And that is the portion. Yeah, go back one. No, actually, what I wanted to do was go forward to the next one. This is actually adjacent to. This is to the west and adjacent to what you just saw. So there's Dorton Way Drive again, and this is the Manchester voting precinct in its entirety. And this is proposed to go from Dale from Clover Hill to Dale. The other portion, I do want to go back just to say, that is proposed to go, currently it's in Midlothian, to go to Dale as well. And then the fourth change is the change really from Matoaca, the major change from Matoaca. And it is the by far the largest change. And this is what is currently the Tomahawk voting precinct, which is what's labeled Woodlake right there. That is the current Tomahawk voting precinct in its entirety. And then Cambria Cove above it is actually a portion of the Skin Quarter voting precinct, which we talked about. The other portion that is going from Midlothian, or going to Midlothian, is to the west there of Cambria Cove. Okay? So you can see it again that way. There's that first thing that we looked at, Midlothian gains 365 from Matoaca, and now we're talking about the Clover Hill gains 4867 from Matoaca. There have been a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and again, appreciate all the input, because it makes it easier for us to take a look at various and sundry things. There have been a lot of comments about the fact that this proposal right now does the Tomahawk voting precinct does not include all of Woodlake. Okay, there is Woodlake, particularly for those that live in Woodlake, as you know. West of here is a portion of Woodlake as well. So This just deals with that eastern portion that now encompasses the entirety of the Tomahawk voting precinct. We did take a look at including the entirety of the Wood Lake voting precinct, and that was certainly on the table to be looked at. What happened as a result of that was, if you include all of Wood Lake within this area, because of the geographic boundaries that we have to adhere to, we lopped off a portion of the Foxcroft subdivision. So there would have been a division, there would be a division of the Foxcroft subdivision in order to include the entirety of Wood Lake. Again, could be done, but there would be now another subdivision that would be divided. One of the other things that happened is, if you include the entirety of the Wood Lake subdivision and this portion of Foxcroft, the numbers there in population are so high that it threw off that range that we need to stay within, that 5% range, and it was taking us well outside of that 5%, which we are not permitted to do. But it was looked at. But I do appreciate the comments, as I know that Mr. Carroll does as well, from the people from Wood Lake, and I appreciate the comments that were made about splitting the Wood Lake subdivision. Okay. This proposal, what we just looked at in its entirety, once we looked at the population numbers seemed to work. Then we took a look at actually how does that deviation work, and that deviation here brings us well inside the 5%. There is actually no change that was really suggested for Bermuda district, even though it is a little higher on the population. There was a look at taking a portion of the Bensley community, but it could only be a portion because of the population realities up in the Bensley area. It's fairly dense area. To take any portion of Bensley and put it in Dale and take it away from Bermuda which was one proposal. That would have split the Bensley community in half. Okay, that would have been actually cut in half. So we did look at that possibility as well. I will say, and some of you probably already know that because you live in those communities, magisterial districts already and always have split neighborhoods. That's not unusual. So it's not unusual for a community to be represented by more than one board of supervisors member. So, but anytime you make a movement, unfortunately, in redistricting, anytime you make a movement, other things change as well. So there is always a snowballing effect that we have to look at. So anyway, this again shows that the deviations are okay numerically on population. And then we looked at, when we got done with that, we took a look at what does this do to the racial component, the racial percentages in the various districts. And I'm going to run through actually each one of them one by one, but you have the way it's set up on all the slides is the percentage of white voters, the percentage of black voters, Asian voters, other voters, Hispanic, Latino, not voters. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Population. This is population, not voting population. So these are the percentages in the Dale district, and as you can see, the difference between before and after from the 2020 census to this proposal is an extremely modest change in percentage. So just looking at the first two, a 0.22% change and a my math is so bad, looks like 0.14% change. So those are pretty modest in the realm of percentages. So really no issues of packing or dilution of voting. If you can go ahead and just go through some of the others. Oh, it's me. The Matoaca district, again, a change of just less a percentage than 1% in the white population. Similarly, less than a 1% change in the black population under this proposal, and you can see the other numbers are very, very small. Modifications, Clover Hill, that's about at a a little less than 1.4. Is it? Yeah, about 1.3 some on white population, and a corresponding change, a little over 1% in the black population, and then your Asian, other, and Hispanic. So again, fairly small changes. And then similarly in Midlothian, a very, very small changes in really all categories. So these numbers were actually, I think that we all felt were well within the ranges we were hoping for, so that there would not be any major changes in any of the populations. Okay, so that is how we got to where we got to. And this is a proposal. It was, it has been published as a proposal. It has been available. Actually, the portal for commenting has been open since September, since the September 22nd board meeting, when the board agreed that this would be the proposal that we would be discussing. That portal, again, is still open. It's on the county's website. It is dedicated to redistricting. It will stay open. It will stay open through the public hearing on October 27th. It will remain open right up to the day before the next board meeting. So there's plenty of opportunity to take a look at what we're doing here, make any comments, and you can certainly make comments and show up at the public hearing and speak. So there are plenty of opportunities to be involved. So again, public comment period is open. The maps and online forms are all available at that site, chesterfield.gov/census. That drills you right down to where you need to be. This is the second of the community meetings, and again, thank you, Mr. Carroll, for being here for this. Appreciate that. And the public hearing then on redistricting before the board is scheduled for the October the 27th. So it's coming up relatively shortly here. But I do want to re-emphasize the fact that it doesn't even stop at the public hearing. There still is commenting available. If you can't make it for comment, you can comment on the county's portal and continue to do that. So that is the proposal, and and sort of how we got to where we got to and what the next steps are. Yes.
And I meant to say in my opening comments too, just for everyone who's reading the newspaper or other feeds, the state and federal redistricting processes that are going on, they are done by state officials, state-appointed commissions. Everything you see from us and what we're presenting tonight is the local perspective of such local districts. And so whatever the state processes are, they are completely independent and autonomous from us. We just simply, when they are done, put those lines also on our maps and again, work with our registrar's office to make sure everyone knows exactly what precinct they're in and what district they're in, local, state, and federal.
Okay. So if we could go ahead and go to the comments and questions that have come on. The first question is disproportionate number of people of color being packed into the Dale district, which already has a higher percentage minorities than any other district. Actually, I think if you and this presentation will remain up, and you may want to go back and take a look at those bar charts again, because the changes in those in the demographics of both the white and black populations changes. I think the black population was roughly 0.14%. That is a fairly small change. In fact, it's a very small change. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pulling back that up. So you can see the white population changes by 0.22%. The black population changes less than that, 0.14%. So I don't think that this is an issue of packing at all. Holding two virtual meetings. These have this is why is Chesterfield holding two virtual, poorly publicized meetings? Many people do not use Facebook. Adjacent counties like Henrico, Hanover, holding 4 public information sessions, well publicized. Actually, we have found that the Facebook Live the participation is actually good, even in comparison to former redistricting that we have done in the past. So, and I don't know what the numbers are for tonight, but the numbers were better than what I think we normally get in a redistricting community meeting. We are also doing the one thing that not sure that everybody is doing, and that is keeping a portal open so that commenting can come in at all times of night and day as well. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity to be involved. There's also, again, the public hearing. So just want to remind everybody that you can appear at the public hearing as well and voice any concerns that you may have or any comments. With such a large increase in population, will we be adding any more districts? Adding districts is not really has not been on the table through this process. So I would say certainly at this moment, that has not been an item that has been discussed as part of this redistricting process. Does redistricting best align with school districting? It actually, to go back, and that was a kind of a point that we made at the beginning, there is not intended to be any alignment between school districting and this redistricting. In fact, there isn't any. The school districting process is not related in any way to magisterial districts. Okay, that is a school function, and they don't even look at the magisterial districts when they do their school redistricting. So no, it doesn't align. It's not intended to, and there is actually no relationship between the two. Is the goal to keep incumbents in their seats or represent the people of this county? The goal always is the goal that I hope I explained from the beginning, and that is to redistrict within certain population boundaries, and then be cognizant of racial percentages as well. Once we have looked at that, can you put it back up, because I want to make sure I get that entire question. Thank you. Why were board members consulted without the public? The board members are always consulted on the task of putting a proposal together. There is, the way that redistricting actually works is it starts with a proposal, but the purpose of the proposal is to put it out to the public for the public to comment on. And so this is the reflection of this is what we're doing right now, is the involvement of the public. We did on the 13th. We're doing again tonight. That is what the public hearing's for, and that particularly is what the portals are for. All of that is a public comment opportunity. Alternate maps proposed, there weren't any, I think because At the time, this map actually satisfied all the legal requirements, seemed to be a map that the board felt comfortable in proposing. But again, the process that we're going through, it's always important to reflect the fact that this is indeed a proposal that is on the table. Yes, we could have done many, many more proposals, but really we actually thought that once we had this proposal in place, the important thing was getting it out to the public, which is, again, what happened on the 22nd of September. So this proposal has been out public for quite a while now. Why was Midlothian changed at all? Again, it was close to having no variance. Seems to be odd that it was changed. The change to Midlothian, again, it's a process that every time a piece of property is touched through the redistricting process, it has other consequences. And in this particular case, it was important for Dale to pick up additional population. That was an available place for some of that population to come from. One of the other factors was that area where the Manchester voting district is and where this portion of Pocashock is, on that dividing line between Dale and Midlothian. That area was actually looked at in the last redistricting, and there was some thought of how do I smooth those lines over and make that a more compact district, to actually make both Midlothian and Dale more compact districts. And so that was one of the factors in it as well. Pocashock, that's a split voting precinct, and there are actually two voting precincts that would be split as a result of this, and the registrar who deals with voting precincts is well aware that that there may be a need to set up new voting precincts or combine existing precincts with others. So again, none of that will affect this election. I want to make that clear. You're going to still be voting in the same places, same slate of people. But for future elections next year, yes, there would be some adjustment to this precinct and to the Skin Quarter precinct. So both Pocashock and Skin Quarter voting precincts would have some adjustments made. The other two that we're talking about, the Cambria Cove is also part of Skin Quarter, but the Wood Lake actually would not change a precinct at all, since it is the entirety of the Tomahawk voting precinct. Likewise, the Manchester voting precinct coming from Clover Hill into Dale would be an entire existing voting precinct. Okay. What is the racial breakdown of the 9,125 of the county? That is actually those are the percentages that we showed you previously, yeah, we have each of the individual areas that we're talking about posted, and they actually show that racial breakdown. So if you go to Chesterfield.gov/census, you can go and see the maps for each one of those areas, and it shows the percentage, the racial breakdown of each one of those areas. And that's the same question. Matoaca to Dale. Why not simply move from Matoaca to Dale? It could be done, but yeah, south of Dale, south of the existing Dale district, while there's a fair amount of property, it's not very dense. And so if you go down there, Matoaca's not losing much population, and it had to lose a large amount of population to get anywhere close to the 5% that we were talking about. So going basically south from Dale into Matoaca was not going to, it might have equalized Dale, but it was not going to equalize Matoaca. So that would be the reason why that would not solve the the percentages. Reviewed voting data and developing? No. We didn't have voting data. I don't know what voting data there is, but voting data is not a part of this process at all. This is, again, driven solely by data that is provided us by the U.S. Census. Dale bar graph go to 45% of the y-axis. I don't know. Why does the Dale bar graph go to 45%? Well, I think it's just because some of those. Now I understand the question now. The question was, why does some of the maps actually go up just like, let's say, there's Dale to 45%, 80% of Matoaca. That's only because some of the numbers that we were dealing with got you beyond 45%. But in the Dale district, those numbers stayed below that. It was just to make the graph more readable. This is still a proposal. Confusing why it was stated throughout the presentation that this is still a proposal, yet when going through the slides, the statement, we thought of other plans, but they did not work. So why take a citizen input if it's already apparently been done? No, I think what I'm trying to convey is your comments are enabling us to take a look. When you say specifically, could you look at this, could you look at this, we're looking at those things. And one in particular was Woodlake. So we actually took a look at that very specific question. What would we need to do? What would have to change? And so it is your comments that enable us to go back and take a look at it to see how it is working in the scheme of the overall redistricting and the requirements that we need to meet. So I guess I would suggest they are helpful. They actually are helpful, and continue, particularly if you have very specific requests or specific ideas, that you let us see them so that we can explore how they work from a numerical standpoint. 17. There are. This is in the event that the board chooses to vary from this proposal. When would those changes be made public? When would the public be able to comment on those changes? Again, this is going to be a process where we will have available to you anything that anybody is looking at, all the way through the 17th of November. And the public comment at that point, the public hearing will be closed, but the portal will be open for comments, and the public can still comment on any other proposal that may fairly be on the table at that time. This process feels rushed. How will the comments factor in if they come in the same day of the vote? Actually, they'll come in the day before, I think is the way we've got it set up. But still, it's hard to say, not knowing what those comments might be that come in on the day before the board actually takes action on this. The process feels rushed. Actually, in going back to former redistricting, it is kind of, it's not exactly on the same timeline from beginning to end, but it is not that far off. The big factor that has caused us to have to move with dispatch on this is the fact that the numbers that we got from Census did not arrive until August. And when they arrive, it's not that we get that. There has to be a verification process. The state actually went through a process after we received those numbers where they had to include some of the prison population in the numbers. So there was a little adjustment that had to be made, but we actually started trying to get something together so that it could be available for the public to see pretty much as soon as we received the numbers, so that we could get them to the board, get the board to take action, and get it to you. But again, this comment period will have extended from virtually in an entire 2-month period from September 22nd to November 17th. So that's a pretty good comment period. That's the same question. Did any of the other districts go up overall in minority voters? Yes, Matoaca did, and Dale did. Yeah, and it's not a voting. Yes, thank you, Joe. All the numbers that we have are none of them are voter numbers. Okay, we can't do the redistricting based on voter population. It is citizen population. It is how many people there are. So there's not a minority voter issue. Thank you for raising that. But as far as people, 2 of the districts actually have an increase, it's very slight increase in minority voters. And Latina people of color, the graphics for that, maybe, obviously, this is a question that came in since we put up the bar graphs. So maybe I could just run through those one more time. Can we just pull the? Yeah, they are on the website. But just very quickly, I just wanted to run through these. If you'll see as you go through these charts, and every chart is organized the same way, it'll give you white population, black population, Asian, other, Hispanic, Latino. So each of the districts have that same breakdown, and you can go ahead and scroll through each one of the 4 magisterial districts. And again, it is on the website. So yeah, they are there, and you can see them there.
It's also, this is the information we were provided from the census data.
Right.
Right. So that means
Yeah.
we're using the census data information.
Correct. Yeah, and there is actually no other source of data that we have or can use. So that's, I'd stress that again. Largely, the bar graphs show that Chesterfield is largely a racially segregated county, with Dale having a significantly greater minority population. I don't think that the changes. I really can't. I really can't buy into the premise of that. Okay, I don't think that it is that Chesterfield is at all a racially segregated county. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. How will changes to the proposals work? And that is, again, all changes, any proposed changes will be shared with board members, and they will come up at the public hearing. They will be before the board before the 17th, and as comments are made, maybe as other proposals may be looked at, then there'll be an opportunity to comment on those as well. So. Deadline for comment, and again, maybe what is the deadline for comments? Is it November the 16th, the day before the vote? I thought that was the way we were setting it up, but is it going to stay open through the actual day of the board meeting? Generally, our portals stay open for board meetings until the day before. Yeah, noon of the day of the meeting? Okay. It's noon of the day of the meeting. So thank you for that clarification, and thank you for that question as well. So that will be the 17th, up to the 17th at noon. Actual numbers in the bar graph. Yes, yeah, we can certainly do that. How do the proposed changes break down at the precinct level? That is, the voting precincts follow redistricting. We try to adhere as much as possible because it's easier, truly that way, to adhere to voting precincts because our voting precincts are always tied in also with at least the districts that the state has set up as well. So they tie into a point. However, We do know that if this proposal is a proposal that goes forward, there will be 2 voting precincts again, Skin Quarter and Pocashock, that will be split, and the registrar then is charged with how to set up new voting precincts so that it meets all of the state law requirements for those precincts. I think that's it. And thank you all. I really, again, I appreciate all the comments and appreciate all the questions, and I hope that's been helpful. But it certainly has been for us. And Mr. Carroll, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Thank you. We're going to continue to look at the information as it comes in from the community. This is not falling on deaf ears. As I said before, I don't want to lose an inch in Matoaca. Unfortunately, I don't have a choice in the matter. And so there are going to have to be some lines that are changed. If you have suggestions and ideas, then send them in. It's one thing to comment and complain and say this is wrong. I get it. No one's ever going to be happy. We can't make everybody happy. But if you have good suggestions, or even bad ones, send them in. We'll take a look at them. We're open to what you think is appropriate. So be encouraged to draw a map and send some suggestions in for us to look at. Again, this is a starting point for what looks to be very modest changes to the voting precincts. I know that there are some comments about creating additional precincts that will probably require a longer conversation, probably require legislation perhaps to the General Assembly and a charter change. But that's not off the table in the future. If the community wants to have a discussion about that, I'm certainly willing to listen. And so we may not be able to do it in time for this redistricting, but that doesn't mean we can't put something in place for the future. So I welcome all your comments, keep them coming, and suggestions. And I appreciate the input and look forward to hearing from you. And again, if I had my choice, I wouldn't lose an inch of Matoaca. And so thank you.
Thank you, everybody.